Good afternoon and welcome to the Extension Ag Update Financial Assistance for Ag Producers Zoom meeting. My name is Charlie Grace. I'm the County Extension Agent for Dougherty, Lee, and Worth counties. I would like to thank A&R staff for putting this program together. I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Ralph Noble, the Dean of Family Science and Technology, Harris Rudolph, USDA NRCS State Conservation. Introduction of speakers, we have Robert Chambers, he's the USDA NRCS program analyst. We have Bunty Jackson, District Conservation for USDA NRCS. Also have Mia Leonard, he is the USDA FSA Public Affairs Outreach Coordinator. The topics are the 2018 Farm Bill, Financial Assistance Program for Environmental Quality and Incentive Program, and Conservation Stewardship Program. Getting started with NRCS, exploitation through the local office. Also, the CFAP program, which is the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Without further ado, Mr. Robert Chambers.
So my name is Robert Chambers. I'm with NRCS out of the state office in Athens, Georgia. And I want to thank Fort Valley State University Extension for inviting me today to talk to you all about the 2018 Farm Bill and our financial assistance programs. So with the 2018 Farm Bill, one thing for sure that it's going to do is going to ensure a strong support for not only America's but Georgia state farmers and ranchers, streamline and target the simplified programs, and fulfill the Secretary's goal of improving customer service. And we're also going to continue to keep offering those financial assistance programs that have been come to be favored by our participants that work with NRCS. On the average, NRCS invests $8 million daily into conservation systems throughout the United States for producers that so they can be profitable and lucrative. So the one thing I'm gonna start off with is one of the biggest changes for the 2018 Farm Bill. What it made us do was we had to streamline our programs. And so the two particular programs I'm gonna talk about today is EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program, which the Farm Bill allowed us to streamline the application process, the contracting, the conservation planning, the conservation practices, and the overall administrative procedures for dealing with these programs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with providing an overview of these programs, CSP and EQIP, and then I'll get into how to get started with NRCS and look at some different practices that you can get financial assistance for through our programs. So one of our most popular programs, EQIP, it provides financial and technical assistance to address the resources, concerns, and delivers environmental benefits that allows the landowner to be able to improve the water and air quality and conserve ground and surface water, reduce soil erosion and sedimentation, and improve or create wildlife habitat. So how it works. EQIP, number one, is voluntarily. You know, it's a volunteer program that helps producers let the conservation on the land work for them. And together with NRCS and the producer, we come together with solutions that will be able to conserve their natural resources for the future of improving the overall ag system on the land. The practices that we offer in EQIP, they lead to cleaner water, air, just better overall habitat on that land by improving upon those resource concerns that wasn't operating at an optimum level. Now, some of these benefits through EQIP that you can receive is you can see a reduction of contamination from ag sources. You can see efficient utilizations of nutrients through a reduction in input costs. And you can see an increase in soil health to help mitigate against increasing water volatility and improve drought resiliency. Next program I'm gonna cover is CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program. This is the program where you're already doing great stewardship on your land. You come to us and we kind of just provide you a little extra to help you continue on doing those good conservation practices on your land. You get paid for the performance with your land, what you're doing. So when you come in, we want you to continue doing what you're doing and then pick up additional conservation enhancements or practices to further the production of their land. So how it works. CSP, like I said, helps build upon the existing conservation efforts while strengthening your operation. You know, so whether you're looking to improve on your grazing conditions, increase your crop yield, or develop better wildlife habitat, we can definitely design a custom plan in our local NRCS office to help meet the needs of your land. We can help you schedule planting the cover crops, implement no-till to reduce erosion, or we can manage your forests and areas for ways that benefit wildlife. So some of the benefits for CSP, you know, you really get to see real results. Some of these benefits include increased crop yields, decreased inputs, better wildlife habitat population, and increased resilience to weather extremes. Well, here's a conservation overview. So to get started with us to come in and work with EQIP or CSP, you know, like I say, the Farm Bill mandated for us to streamline these programs. So we kind of do program neutral planning now. So when you come into the office, many times in the past, people will come in and say, you know, I want to sign up for EQIP. I want to sign up for CSP. Well, now you can come in and, you know, work with the local office, and basically they're going to address the problems on your plan, and then on your land, and then through planning and evaluation, that, you know, will determine through a series of tools which program would be better suited for you, if not both. So we pretty much have 5 steps to assistance. And those 5 steps are planning, application, eligibility, ranking, and then implementation. So planning, with planning, what happens is you go into your local district conservationist office in your county, and they work with you to address a conservation plan that addresses your needs. You know, we're here to help you, but overall it's still about your land objectives and your goals for your property. We identify resource concerns which are problematic, and then we also look at the federal, state, and local agency requirements. Within doing that, in that phase of planning, we also provide supporting documents such as job sheets, engineering designs, and our standards and specifications for the maintenance of those practices. But conservation planning, landowner will get a conservation plan with their objectives, with their name and address for the farm with the track number, and then also a detailed conservation plan that outlines the land units and the point and non-point practices. Also, one thing that you can get is a soil map. You know, like anything, especially when you're dealing with plants and vegetation that go in the ground, soil is very important. So a detailed soil map uh, is definitely important. It helps you know where you're going to have probably some of the most productivity from that vegetation. Also, you get a topo map as well. Uh, the next phase is application. Applications for our programs are accepted on a continuous basis, even though we do have different sign up and cutoff dates throughout the year, but you can apply for our programs year round. Um, the application must be completed in the client's legal name, pretty much how you file with the IRS, and appointments can be made to complete an assessment on your property. Right here, we have an NRCS CPA 1200, which is our conservation program application, which is standard for all our programs. And, you know, you would fill it out, and then for the program that you will want to participate in, that individual can check off EQIP or whether it's CSP. Now, ranking, that's a big step in terms of after, you know, we've done that planning and met on your land and see everything that, you know, you want to do through the ranking of the applications according to the local resource concerns, the amount of conservation benefit the work will provide, and the needs of the applicant. And so with ranking, we have questions that are developed by our local work group units. They pretty much prioritize the resource concerns for, you know, those counties and local areas. And if you are a landowner who's applying and you know you are addressing some of those local prioritized resource concerns, then, you know, you'll kind of get a bump up in terms of points throughout their ranking process. One of the other important things is eligibility. The participant has to have farm records established with the Farm Service Agency to participate in NRCS programs. You know, property deeds show control of the land through a lease agreement, farm number, tract number, social security or tax ID number, AD 1026, the highly erodible land and wetland compliance, and you also need to complete a direct deposit form for payments. Implementation, that's almost as big as eligibility. You know, if you're selected for a contract, then, you know, you need to choose, you can choose whether or not you want to proceed with us to move forward and let that work be done. And once the contract is developed, you'll sign and everything, and then you'll be provided standards and specifications that we will want you to install those practices and enhancements on your property. And then upon certification, when everything is done right, you know, we'll provide you a payment when you have implemented it. So once the practice is completed, NRCS conduct that field visit. And as I said before, if it meets those standards and specifications, they could be certified. And typically the participant will receive compensation for their completed work within 10 business days. So what I wanted to show you here was some just an overview of some different practices that we use to address resource concerns on the property. So right here, you know, for soil erosion, you know, do a no-till system, have crop residue management, or implement a cover crop planting. For water quality with grazing, we do some 3-strand barbed wire fence. The fence, you know, livestock out of water. We do a heavy use area with a watering facility to cut down on bad water quality. Then we could do a well with a concrete pad. Some more water quality practices that we can do to address things: do a stack house, a composter, or if you have a huge livestock operation, solid separator. As far as forestry goes, we do forest stand improvement, open up a stand of trees for wildlife improvement, or to thin them back. We do prescribed burning, or also a forest opening for wildlife. In terms of water conservation, we do have some irrigation practices, and this irrigation practice right here is a retrofit. So with our financial assistance, the regular assistance is at 75%, but no more than 90% of the costs associated with planning, the design, materials, equipment, installation, and the labor, maintenance, and training. And so with that being said, I want to go into, we have some things in the Farm Bill that does address a specific group of individuals, which is our historically underserved farmers and ranchers. And so under the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, the Farm Bill includes provisions that address the unique circumstances and concerns of socially disadvantaged, beginning, limited resource, and veteran farmers and ranchers. The 2018 Farm Bill provides for voluntarily participation, offers incentives, and focuses on equity in assessing U.S. Department of Ag programs and services. So who falls under the historically underserved farmers and ranchers? One of the first ones that come to mind would be a limited resource farmer or rancher. The term limited resource farmer or rancher is basically a participant with direct or indirect gross sales not more than the current index value in each of the previous 2 years. All this is based on a self-determination, so the landowner will self-certify. Next one will be beginning farmer or rancher. Beginning farmer or rancher is a participant who hasn't been farming or ranching for not more than 10 consecutive years. Our next category is a socially disadvantaged farmer or rancher. This is an individual entity who is a member of a socially disadvantaged group. A socially disadvantaged group is a group of those whose members have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice because of their identity as members of a group without regard to their individual qualities. It's a list of groups. Our next one is a veteran farmer or rancher. I think that pretty much explains simply stated what it is, but it's for our veterans who have served in the United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, or Coast Guard. So with that being said, I just want to, say that the Farm Bill is an important tool. Is what gives us our funds to be able to operate our financial and technical assistance, not only throughout the United States of America, but right here in Georgia. And, it doesn't work without the dedication of the participants that we have who actually sign up for these programs and allow us to help and assist them. It's their land, their objectives, but, we're just here to help and add more on that financial piece and that technical piece to make sure things are done right, and help them be good stewards of the land. If you need more resources, these are some links right here that you can use, or even contact us in the state office in Georgia. Once again, my name is Robert Chambers. I would like to thank you for allowing me to present this information. And if you have any questions, I'll take those now.
Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to make this announcement. If you have any questions, please raise your Zoom hand or put your question in the chat box. At the end of the program, the speaker will address all questions.
Extension Trout Fort Valley State University County Extension Agent in Irving County. My question is, based on y'all limits for the LLC versus non-LLC, what is y'all cap on the LLC for us to finance? I know it's 40,000 without it.
That depends on program, but pretty much for CSP participants, you know, you have a cap for a contract on 5 years of 200,000, whether you're an individual or an entity. And then for equip, it's pretty much the same across the board. And I don't have that number in front of me in terms of what it is.
Okay.
Ms. Janice Johnson.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, great. I'd like to know, when are we to put in for the control burns as far as your forest, and also to have it somewhat not cleared, but to thin it out?
Okay. Yes, so those recommendations will come from a forest management plan. You know, if you work with a consultant forester, or, you know, if you signed up for a program with us with NRCS, we will pair you with the Georgia Forestry Commission, and they'll write a plan for you that gives you those recommendations for your property in terms of what's best suited for it. So if you were signing up for burning and thinning, then, you know, they'll write a plan to address that, and it'll include the years and whatnot in terms for what you need to do that.
Okay, all right. So I can sign up anytime?
Yes, ma'am. You can sign up year round.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. James Ford.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Could you speak a little more about CSP and the financial advantage it will be for farmers to sign up for CSP, and give them a little, I guess, a little cheerleading form in terms of how that can be advantage to them?
Yes, Mr. Ford. So CSP, one good thing that's good about CSP is that although it does have a annual 5-year contract limitation of 200,000 for a participant, one of the good things about it is that, you know, you get a minimum $1,500 payment. So one thing that could be good about that minimum $1,500 payment, being that we're giving you payment to continue doing the good work that you were already doing on your land, and also to pick up some additional practices to continue doing that. You know, that $1,500, I mean, that can help you with your annual taxes, or, you know, whatever it may be, to help keeping your farm going in the right direction and being on the up and up. So, you know, and also too, the additional conservation practices and enhancements that you pick up and implement on your farm, you know, you get paid for that additionally as well. But you always have that minimum $1,500 payment for the duration of that contract.
Yes, Dean Noble, we saw where you put your question in the chat box. Would you like to voice it over the Zoom?
Yes. I wanted to ask have there done many, Mr. Chambers, enjoyed your presentation. Have there been many equipped programs with goat producers?
Yes, there have. Now I don't have those exact numbers in front of me or whatnot, but we do work with goat producers, you know, through Equip.
In a case where the county office has a different priority, is it possible they could limit what kind of investment they would have on goat producers versus if the board is made up of primarily beef cattle producers?
I don't really think so, because what it boils down to is the resource concerns. And so the same resource concerns that will be on a farm for livestock, whether it is cow or goat, I mean, it's pretty much the same.
Thank you.
Are there programs for funding greenhouses for growing vegetables in controlled environments? Also funding to provide water for irrigation, need to dig a well, and need a filtration system for it.
Okay. Yeah, so we do have certain initiatives that would fall under, but that will be under the Equip program. So it's best to, you know, speak with your local county office to make sure that they can come out to your land unit and do an assessment and see that you qualify for those initiatives, because there are certain quality criteria you have to have in place to actually be able to be in that type of initiative. And so we don't do greenhouses, we do seasonal high tunnels, and to be eligible for irrigation, you know, you have to have years of irrigation already established.
Hello, I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Lambert.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say that once you meet the qualifications, the payment can be made within 10 days or so?
Yes.
Is that under the Equip CSP where you did say like cover crops?
Well, that'll be for all. That's just a typical.
All the programs?
Yes, all programs. They're just typical business day in terms of operation, in terms of from, you know, once we certify your practice and issue payment, you know, it pretty much takes typically 10 days.
Because I was told by my local office that they only make the payments one time a year.
Yes, that's for CSP.
CSP?
Yes.
So that is true.
Yes.
So
not necessarily one time a year. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Vontice.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm Vontice Jackson, District Conservationist out of Swainsboro, Georgia. So with the CSP payments, if you have a contract with us, you will have the option to either get paid in fiscal year, say, use around November timeframe. It may be a little sooner, but if you don't want that payment that year for tax reasons, a lot of people prefer that they get paid the following year for their CSP payment in order to help them with their taxes. So I don't know if that's what you're maybe asking.
No, because I completed the practice for the cover crop, and they told me I had satisfied everything. And I said, well, can I get paid? They said, well, no, the payment's only made one time a year, as opposed to within 10 days after meeting the requirement.
Okay, so that there is a time frame when we will make CSP payments. We're notified from our state office, typically with a state bulletin saying that we can start making CSP payments. Usually after October 1, once that fiscal year starts over, is the time frame when we start making payments, but we can go into the next year, calendar year, like I said, for tax reasons. But you were told correct, you know, you have to wait to a certain time frame. And that's just when we're able to make those CSP payments. Unlike Equip, once you implement the practice, you're actually getting paid, you know, shortly afterwards. And the thing about CSP, you know, you have to provide your documentation. So even though you planted your cover crop, you know, ideally you want to take your pictures and show your documentation that you have implemented the practice. So when it's time to make payment and you turn in your documentation to be certified, that's where you can show your proof that you have planted the cover crops, because ideally, you know, they may not be there at that time. If that helps.
Right, but yeah, it does. But I did all the practice and they confirmed I had turned everything in. So I said, well, can I get paid? They said, well, I have to wait until payments are being made as opposed to 10 days after meeting the requirement.
For CSP, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie, we have some more questions, but I don't know if you want to keep the flow of the meeting going or not until the end.
Let's address a couple more questions, I think we have the time.
Okay, Mr. Timothy Robertson, you had one in the chat. Would you like to voice it over Zoom?
Sure. My question is, I'm Timothy Robertson, Southern Farmers Collaborative Group. And how can farmers participate in the local working groups?
Yes, they could work with the local county office and also the local soil and water conservation district within their area.
And I'll jump in. So when we have our local work group meetings, it's usually once a year. What we do, we'll send out information to usually our public affairs specialists in our state office, letting them know the time, the date, the location of these local work group meetings. And they normally put it on the website. And so that's your opportunity to participate in the local work group at that time. You don't have to be a board member to participate, because it is open to the public or landowners in that county.
When did you say it's published?
Well, normally once we start the new fiscal year, and we're usually given a time frame to start setting up our local work group meetings. Usually in the fall of the year is when we start to have them, prior to EQIP, when we start implementing our EQIP program. That way we'll have our guidelines to know how we want to implement the program at a local level. So usually around the fall of the year, we've had them in August. I believe we've had them in September. It just varies. We normally have a deadline or to have them set by a certain deadline. And we just wait on guidance to let us know.
Okay, how can I get notifications from the state office, so I can actually be aware of that they're being published at the time, so I can inform the farmers that's part of the group that I'm the president of?
So since everything comes from our public affairs specialist, I'm not sure if you're aware that on our Georgia NRCS website, there's like a little envelope that says get email notifications. And that's where you can put your actual email address in there. And normally when he sends out information, it's being sent out through that list serve of customers who signed up to receive email notifications. I'm even signed up for it, because sometimes we'll find out stuff through the public firsthand.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question before we move to the next speaker. From Clinton Vicks, is there any assistance for fish farming?
What was the question?
Are there any assistance for fish farming?
So like aquaculture, I believe, is that in Georgia? No. I have heard of other states utilizing that, but as far as on our practice standards and different job sheets that we have, we don't have anything that reference fish farming or aquaculture. I think as it starts to get popular throughout the U.S., maybe Georgia will catch on and start doing it, but I've never dealt with it. So.
Right.
Okay, our next speaker is Vunty Jackson. She is the USDA NRCS District Conservationist in Emmanuel County. Vunty, your topic per se is expectation through the local office. I want to raise this question to you. Maybe you can speak on it during your presentation. The question from Dr. Ralph Noble. If a farmer has trouble getting assistance from the county NRCS office, can they reach out to the state office or you for explanation or assistance?
Absolutely. Ideally, if you feel like you're not getting the assistance that you need from the local field office, definitely, you want to start with that district conservationist. That's the supervisor that's covering the areas. And let me start over. I'm Vunty Jackson, the district conservationist with NRCS down in Swainsboro, Georgia. So for those who may not know who I am, but just to continue with your question, ideally, if you're having problems in my field office or my local sub offices, because we do have multi-county offices with Georgia. I have 5 counties that I cover, 4 actual field offices. So I'm not able to be present in every one of my, each one of my offices every time. So if you're having an issue, ideally you want to go to the district conservationist first and see, because hopefully it can be resolved at that level. If you feel like you can't get it resolved at that level, I have no problem telling someone, you can speak to my supervisor. He's the area conservationist over the area. There's 4 different area conservationists in the state of Georgia. It's on our website. You can find out who you need to call. Hopefully that district conservationist will tell you, the name and number so that you can make contact. And if you feel like you still can't get the assistance that you're needed or the answers that you're, like to have, you can always go up to the state office to Mr. Rudolph. I don't know if Mr. Rudolph want me to say, they can call you directly, but, you have an open door policy. So, and he's really good about speaking to landowners with issues in Georgia. And you can possibly go all the way up to past Mr. Rudolph's boss, if you feel like it's not getting there. But hopefully, through the chain of command, at some point, we're able to help you resolve your issues. And I find it's usually just communication, just not getting the right communications or being misled in some form or fashion. I like to tell everybody, everybody's not going to get approved for these programs. We just have too many applications. Then we have funding. So, I think communication is the key. And if you can just start with good communication, that will help out in the long run. Mr. Rudolph, you can chime in if you're on here, if you'd like to say something as well now.
You're doing an excellent expertise. You're absolutely right. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions? Did that help answer the question? I'm not sure who posed it.
Yes, you certainly did. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I didn't have a presentation when Stefan asked me to speak. I was very busy, but I did step up to the plate and just say, sure, I will. Because I'm always, I love to try to provide as much information as I can to our farmers and landowners, because NRCS, I think a lot of people, when they hear NRCS now, they're thinking programs, money, cost share grants. I need a fence because I want to get some cows, or I need a well because I want to irrigate. And yes, that is some of the things that we do help with. But I want to speak to you all about, what is expected from the farmers, the landowners, our customers who wants to participate and receive these financial benefits through the programs that Robert discussed. One thing that I find when dealing with new farmers who come to the office, they just really don't know. They have this land, they're paying taxes, and they don't know what to do with it. Of course, I want to raise goats, but I don't have any goats. So I need help with getting goats. Or I want to irrigate, or I want a greenhouse, that just like someone just said, a greenhouse, And so what I try to do, like I said, communication is the key. It's just really try to sit down with them and figure out what it is their objective. Some of the things that NRCS is doing this year that I got to get used to doing as well is they're wanting us to do more, just going out and just doing the planning first, like Robert said, you know, planning. Let's not talk about programs, application, funding. Let's go into doing the planning. What are your objectives out there on your farm? We look at it from a resource concern. What are your issues out there? You know, do you have soil washing? Do you have cows that doesn't have access to clean water? Do you have a forest, existing forest land that's just growing timber and you would love to break straw one day, but you need to go in there and clean it up, and some of those issues. So I like to just sit down and just have that conversation as to what it is you're trying to achieve. Some people may not be ready. Like I said, I want goats, but you don't have the fence, the perimeter fence, to even get the goats. And so sometimes NRCS may not be the first step for you. You may need to go to other places such as FSA, who have the loans that'll help with getting goats. We can't help you get started. I think we hear a lot about beginning farmers, the beginning farmer program. And I think ideally everybody thinks, okay, they can help me get started. Well, we can't, because we're looking at it from a natural resource issue, what it is that are your issues out there as it relates to farming and of course forest land production. So to get you started, you know, we can help you with establishing a farm and tract number. I find with a lot of our customers, they've never dealt with USDA. They have, you know, they're not even in the system. And so one of the things I like to do is just walk you through the steps. We're very fortunate to have an FSA across the hall. So of course I will go with them across the hall and make sure that, you know, they have a farm and tract number. Also, while we're doing this, we're making sure they're eligible and compliant. Robert talked about AD 1026, that's our highly erodible and wetland conservation. You have to be in compliance with the law. You can't go out there and just clean up land because it's your land on your property, and to come to find out that you're disturbing wetlands, you can actually be fined. So NRCS will help you with at least knowing that your land is in compliance, and that's one way you have to do that in order to be eligible for our program. So those are some of the initial things that I like to do when I meet landowners for the first time. Now, if you are established, you have animals, you're growing your crops and all, you know, great. Let's go out to your farm and let's see what it is that we can help you with. Most people that have, you know, cattle, one example, just cattle, you know, my cows need water. They're out here drinking out this mud hole or they're drinking out this creek. Okay, good, that's an issue. We can help address that. And what we'll do is we'll help you develop a conservation plan. That plan will actually help you identify your resource concern issues and help you implement or I had a term, but I lost it. But we'll help you with developing a plan or a roadmap, that's what I was looking for, to help you address those issues. Now, again, ideally, if we do have a conservation plan, we can use that conservation plan to apply for financial assistance. One thing that's different this year, and it's been a huge learning curve for us at the field office level, is assessing these plans. We have new tools that we have to utilize. Conservation desktop, that's a big term that we're using with NRCS, and this is our new planning tool. That tool is what we go in and actually develop the map and plan the operation, your conservation plan that will help you spill out what it is you need to do to implement those practices. I talked to an individual the other day, you know, he said he needed a well. And I said, what you need a well for? For my house? No, we can't do that. We are the Department of Agriculture. We're looking to help with, you know, agriculture needs, you know, as it relates to animals, as it relates to cropland. So, you know, just trying to make sure everybody understands what we do, the type of assistance that we provide, and also making sure that you're eligible for these types of assistance. So once we assess your plan, and this assessment, it's new, we're still learning it because we're looking at it from a soil perspective, of water quality, animals, health. We're looking at it from different perspectives out there. And with you implementing these different conservation practices in your plan, you actually will get a score. I think I'm using the right terminology, but that you'll get a score that's part of your assessment. And so sometimes you're below threshold, sometimes you're at the threshold, and sometimes you're over the threshold. And like what Robert was saying, based on the program, EQIP may not be, you may be ready for EQIP, but you're not quite there yet. Or CSP, if you're doing a lot of stuff out there, then you actually can better enhance what you're trying to do out there. So we use these tools. We call it the Conservation Assessment Ranking Tool, and we use that to help rank your application if you're seeking financial assistance for our programs. Now, we will rank your applications in all funding pools available. If you say you're a socially disadvantaged farmer, a beginning farmer, a veteran farmer, we will rank it in all those pools. But in the end, like I said, everybody won't get selected for funding, but at least you'll have that plan as a roadmap to get you started.
Mr. Grace, there's someone in the chat.
Yes, you have 2 questions. Mr. Vicks, mind unmuting yourself?
Hi, sure. My name is Clinton Vicks. I'm here in Albany, Georgia. My question is, I am applying for my farm ID number now, and so the local office that will handle my area where I live sent me the customer data worksheet request for business partner record change. Is that the right form to get me started?
I believe it is. I know FSA normally deals with those changes. It's either the 901 or 902, and but I believe that's the correct form.
Okay. My question was, it allows you to either apply for the ID number in your personal name or business name. Do you know whether one is better than the other, or what would be one versus the other?
I look at it like this: when individuals are not sure if they want to apply as an entity or an individual, it goes back to your taxes. If you are selected for funding and you receive cost share payments from NRCS, you will receive a 1099. So it really depends on how you file your taxes in the end as to whether or not you want to either file it through the entity or do you want to file it as an individual. The only thing about the entity, it links the members. So if it's 5 people that makes up that entity, then each of those individuals gonna have certain shares that you guys decide, who gonna get what. And so when you receive your payments, that money's gonna be broken out based on those percentage points. Everybody may get 20% of the cost share based on how your entity is set up. But that's something that you have to have and know up front, knowing what you want to do, how you want to set this up when you go up in there into the office, because we shouldn't be making that decision for you. You should know how you want to do your operation, how you want to have it set up. But again, to me, I always just feel like it's based on how when you're filing your taxes, what's the best way that's going to help benefit you in the end. It's easier to go through an entity, or is it easier to go through a individual?
So
go ahead.
The way that I plan upon filing my taxes and running my farm is how I should apply for my farm ID number on the application.
If that suits you better, I can't say yes and no, but if that suits you better for your operation.
For the center pivot irrigation system, do y'all have any system for installing wells versus putting in the well for the livestock?
So as it relates to the center pivot irrigation system, so you have to, one thing that Robert mentioned was irrigation history. So ideally, for your center pivot system, you're already irrigating, and we can go in and help you retrofit it. But as far as getting a well to install a center pivot, we can't, because technically you have to have the irrigation history established. 2 out of the last 5 years are the requirements.
Okay.
All right, our next speaker is,
Charlie,
yes.
let me say one thing in closing, because like you said, y'all want to know what the field office expectation is when, for customers. NRCS, as much as we want to be conservation on the ground, planning, going out to the field every day, that's why I started with NRCS. It's changing, but individuals that do sign up, I just want to stress that everyone's not going to get selected for funding. That doesn't mean you're not eligible. That doesn't mean you didn't qualify. It just means either your application didn't rank high enough and somebody else had a higher resource concern or addressed higher environmental impacts that allowed the application to rank high. That's just one of those things, your neighbor can get in and you may not get in. But I think when people are denied or we send out that letter letting them know, unfortunately, your application wasn't selected, it's most people will want to appeal it or for adverse reasons. And, ideally, if you've done your due diligence, you went out, you did your conservation, you did your field visit, you have your conservation plan, and you know what's in that plan, we're addressing those resource concerns. Unless you can identify something else in addition that we missed, your application is going to rank however it ranks. Just know we have more applications than we will ever have funding. And I know Mr. Rudolph can attest to that because we're getting the calls now of everybody not getting in. But that's just beyond our control. But just know, just keep trying. I've had people got in the 3rd year, got people that's gotten in year 1. I just say communicate with your local field office and just let them know that you're interested and you're trying. And also while you're out there, you can implement some of those practices yourself. It doesn't have to necessarily be a financial reason why. If you want to conserve the natural resources, you love your land, you're trying to do the best, you can, attempt to do strip till. There's no till rentals out here. You might want to start with a small strip of land first to get used to it. But don't let NRCS be your determining factor of whether or not you can move forward with farming. Like I said, it's your overall objective, not ours. And whatever it is you want to do to implement, it shouldn't be based on whether or not you get in from NRCS. That's just my 2 cents. Y'all got questions, please don't hesitate to call or email me. Thank you.
Question. If you're an individual that applies for a well or anything within your system, and you do not get it the 1st year, you said some get it the 3rd year, do you have to go back and reapply each year in order, or it stays into the system? So
at some point, usually after October 1, when we start our new fiscal year, we'll send out letters. We're so strict with these letters now. They come certified and they come regular. So you're gonna get 2 pieces of mail from NRCS. And that letter is letting you know, unfortunately, you wasn't selected for funding, but you can have the option to defer it for the next funding year, which it'll roll over. Fortunately, you have to go through the same process as far as ranking because some of the local issues may change. You can get it, you can ask to be reevaluated. What else can I possibly do out here to better my chances? Or you can cancel. So those normally you have 30 days to respond. And I just stress that you really do open up those letters and read them and respond, because if you don't, we will cancel your application. But it will roll over as long as you tell us to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Monty, can you address the importance of record keeping when farmers come into the office and apply for you guys' program, or reapplying for instance, like the CSP program in terms of getting funding for the following year, the documentation that is needed?
Right.
The importance of record keeping. Can you address that, please?
Absolutely, and that's a good question. So we don't do a good job with documentation. We don't do a good job with tracking what we're doing on our farm. I'm not sure if anybody really deals with FSA, but you really need to. If you're growing a crop out there on your land, you need to be documenting that you are growing a crop, especially if it's irrigated cropland, because FSA, that's one way you can keep record of what you're doing, and documentation. Definitely with CSP, that's what CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program, it really is entailing your documentation, your proof that you're implementing these different enhancements on your land and how you're going about doing it. When did you plant? When did you apply your nutrients? How much did you apply? You know, the different things that you're doing out there on your farm. This helps you in the long run, believe it or not. I don't know if many of you were able to take advantage of some of the, I can't get the term correct, but with the pandemic, the assistance that USDA was providing to individuals, a lot of them didn't know about it because, well, a lot of them knew about it, but felt like they couldn't go in there and apply for these assistance because they have never dealt with FSA. And, you know, or either you never heard about it. So you can hurt yourself in the long run by not going in there and submitting your different cropping reports and all, because it's just their way of showing that you are actively farming, and when it's time for different type of disaster programs and all, you'll be eligible, because you have that proof, you have that documentation that you are providing that to FSA, and that's their way of tracking it. As far as CSP, like I said, in the end, I know a gentleman asked about when to get the payment. So, you know, there's a time frame when we have to make CSP payments. So if you're planting a cover crop, you know, at some point, you're going to plant your original crop, your main crop, cash crop. And later on down the year, when it's time to provide documentation that you've actually planted a cover crop, that's where that record keeping is going to come into play, because you're going to say when you planted it, what you had to do. Ideally, if you got pictures, that'd be great, because you got proof and you're showing that it's on your land. Because 9 times out of 10, later part of the year, that cover crop's not going to be there. So we're going off of your word that you are implementing what you're doing, and the best way to provide that proof is through the record keeping process.
This is Bobby Solomon with Fort Valley State Extension. My county is Talbot. Number one, when you say documentation, will an FSA acre report, what they call a 578, would that be sufficient?
Now, unfortunately, I don't know the different reports. Leonard, you might can help me with some of that with FSA. But ideally, you know, they have a deadline when you have to submit your different crops.
That's correct. That's correct.
Mm-hmm. I know I find that they have them outside on the board, you know, by the local field office with the deadlines, but I'm not sure the exact form. Now, unfortunately, I don't know that part of it, but what form you have to fill out.
So what kind of documentation you referring to, other than pictures and what have you?
Right. So I know, like with some of our CSP enhancements, like I say, CSP is normally, it's used to enhance. So what you're doing out there, how are you enhancing it? And so like with nutrient management, so one of the practices or enhancements, I can't tell you off the top of my head because there's so many of them, but in there, it typically wants to know, when did you apply your nutrients? I think it's like 30 days prior to planting. That's an enhancement that relates to that. So they want to know exactly when did you put the nutrient out, when did you plant the crop, how much of the crop you planted, you know, how many acres. We're talking about dates, amounts, that type of record keeping. Showing proof, okay? Once, did you do another side dress of nutrient? Would you put your other nitrogen out there? What type of nitrogen you put out there? Just stuff like that. As you're implementing or as you're planting and farming, you know, I tell individuals, you know, it doesn't hurt, just keep a little notebook on your side. So that way you got it there. You just got to sit down and fill out the paperwork, but at least you know when you did X, Y, Z, you know what date, and you know, all that stuff. So that type of record keeping is what I'm referring to, because I know with CSP, that's a lot of what you have to turn in. And I just love pictures. They're worth 1,000 words, me. So, but you do have to get a little bit more detail. Yes, sir.
Well, what if you have an EQIP contract? I have a client on here, his name is Alvin Howard. He has an EQIP contract, probably about 15 years old. And I want to recommend that he sign up for the CSP program for wildlife. What kind of documentation would he need?
So now that CSP, Now, I'm gonna say that's one of those, this program where you're gonna have to take the time to go in, or however we make it work now, but to sit down and discuss with your local conservationist what you're doing, because CSP is just evaluating what you're already doing. So there's assessment questions that has to be filled out. I don't have them in front of me, but, and it can range from 25 questions to 50 questions. It just depends on how you answer those questions. But you're gonna have to take the time to sit down and answer those questions. And so this is the evaluation of exactly what you're doing beforehand, because remember Robert said you're gonna get an existing payment. Well, that's what that payment is. So it's what you're already doing. Now, how can we enhance it? So there's this, what we call an activity list as it relates to, I don't know if it's necessarily wildlife, but maybe forest land would be more what would help him get that wildlife objective. So these are all the enhancements as it relates to forest land. They are very detailed and it can be a little intimidating, but if you start to read those enhancement job sheets, you can see, well, okay, I might can do that, or you go to the next one. But this is where you got to sit and take the time to go over this and look at it, because you're going to be the one that has to submit this paperwork when it's time to get paid. So if you're signing up for different enhancements and you have no clue really what you're doing, I wouldn't advise you to sign up for that unless you have a private forester or somebody that can help you implement these. But you can get your client or farmer, I'm not sure who it was again, but he can come in and just sit down and just start the process. Just simple visit with the office, you know, however we're gonna make it work with COVID now, but you know, that's how you get started. And I believe Robert said it, but we don't know when we're gonna have our program sign up deadlines. They're just announced just, you know, 30 days prior to, usually on that email that comes out from our public affairs. But at some point, you know, we'll have a cutoff date, but you can put in your application. I will say for CSP, it's more of a, as we start working on CSP, it's better to look at it then, because it's really, it's so much involved with sitting down and just really figuring out what it is you're trying to do, evaluating and all that. Ideally, that would be the good time to do it. And we may get new stuff, you know, each year. CSP may change a little bit. So, but if anything, you know, your application and just letting them know that you are interested in CSP.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, our next speaker is Neil Leonard. He is with USDA FSA, job title Public Affairs Outreach Coordinator. Mr. Leonard.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? You hear me okay, Charlie?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, I do want to thank Charlie and the other Fort Valley State Extension staff for allowing me to come on and share on the Zoom meeting today. I definitely want to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the CFAP program today, and that's what I will be sharing. Again, as Charlie mentioned, I'm the Public Affairs Outreach Coordinator for the Georgia FSA State Office. I do bring you greetings from our new State Executive Director, Ms. Rachel Santos. She's been with us the last couple of weeks. So I do bring you greetings from the SED office this morning. Again, want to talk about the Corona Food Assistance Program. It's very interesting in looking at the flyer, and oftentimes when I've been able to share, we're looking at the 2018 Farm Bill with these USDA programs. Well, the CFAP program is actually under the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Stability Act. So the thing is, what I'm saying, basically, with the Farm Bill, we have funds available for those programs, but for this particular program, being that it's under the CARES Act, The sign up for the CFAP program actually ends September the 11th. It has been extended. So we do have, there's still time to come in and apply. So for those funds that's been approved and available for those farmers out there who very well may have an application that they would like to submit, they got until September the 11th to get in. And I do want to say with the CFAP program, for the most part, we are looking at those crops, and I wrote this term down, unpriced inventory, from January the 15th through April the 15th, the first quarter of the year. And for the most part, with this particular program, we're looking at those crops that you very well may not have locked in a particular price for the inventory that you might have sold or marketed during that particular time. So just want to emphasize that with this particular program, inventory that you might have sold during the first quarter that you did not already have a price already locked in for those particular crops. There are many of crops that has been approved. Initially, when we first came out with the program, there were certain categories that we had, and with the different stages, we have added additional crops twice since the beginning of the sign up. What I would like to do in sharing with all of you all about the farmers.gov public webpage. That's interesting with the coronavirus and the status that we have now, what we are making available to the general public. I tell you, with this farmers.gov webpage, it's probably more current information on there as just as it is for the agency websites and SharePoints that we have available for employees. But let me just emphasize that farmers.gov/CFAP. And I know that all of us that's here on this Zoom, I'm pretty sure you're on your personal computer or what other technical device that you may have, that it will give you opportunity to go on that public website, and pretty much everything that I'm going to share with you today is available on the farmers.gov/CFAP webpage. One of the things I do want to mention at this final stage is about filing an application. There are 3 ways that you can actually go in and prepare yourself prior to coming to the county office, being that for the most part, most of the service centers, we still aren't really receiving staff, well, customers in the office. A lot of times they are meeting outside in the parking lot or in a foyer area that some of the county offices may have. But I do want to go ahead and mention on the farmers.gov, those of us that are technical savvy, we do have a application portal. Those farmers that might have e-authentication approval, where they can go on and actually file an application online with the CFAP program. There is actually the electronic payment calculator that you can create, and actually it's an Excel workbook, and you will be able to file an application that way. And then you can also download the 3114. That's the form number application. You can manually complete that and submit it to your local county offices. So what I'm getting at here on this farmers.gov, there are ways of submitting an application online. Some of these processes very well may include going by the county office as well. But again, with this farmers.gov, there's information available to apply. Also, too, I do want to strongly emphasize the CFAP call center. That number is 877-508-8364. That number has been established since the beginning of this sign up. This CFAP call center. Any questions that you may have as it relates to the CFAP program, what crops you may have, as far as what is needed, as far as completing the applications. I'm listening today. They mentioned about record keeping. There are some things that this particular program don't require. Acreage reporting, farm serial numbers, those things you don't have to have at sign up. However, with record keeping, I will say if you sales receipts, I think you would want that. So with all of these programs that we have, what type of records we may need very well may vary from program to program and from agency to agency. And I would say to you, even if you don't have a farm serial number or made an acreage report, so you may need to have those sales receipts. So it's going to be something that you, some type of record keeping. I do want to emphasize again with this farmers.gov, there are fact sheets on there. They've been updated since the additions of different crops that are now eligible. There were some crops that weren't eligible at the beginning, but now are eligible. There are frequent asked questions that you could go over on farmers.gov. So it's a lot of things that the agency has realized that producers questions that they may have, and they have made a very strong effort to put as much resources on farmers.gov for the producers. Also, too, with this final stage coming on board, we very well may have producers that are signed up that may have received payments. Initially, when we rolled this program out, they was making payments up to 80% of the eligible amount. Now we are paying out actually 100% of the eligible amount. So that has come on board at this final stage. There very well may be some questions about, do I need to come back in now if I had a crop, one eligible crop, one that wasn't eligible, now one is the second crop is eligible. Those you won't have to file a new one, but you'll go in and have to update your previous application. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off my presentation and just really want to emphasize again, going online and looking at that farmers.gov/CFAP, CFAP. Take a look at it. It's a public web page. There's a lot of information on there, fact sheets, call center number, frequent asked questions. So take a look at that web page. And I don't mind entertaining any questions. We've been entertaining them during the Zoom meeting, but I definitely would say if we can't answer it now, I can definitely write it down. But I will say go on that farmers.gov or that call center. That is what it was created for. So. But anyway, I do want to thank Fort Valley State. Do want to thank you, Charlie, for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Grace, there was a couple of questions in the chat room that were still left.
Yes. Neil Minner has a resource in chat box. Wanted me to mention that to everyone. Question: are there educational resources on record keeping? And that question posed by Alvin Howard to everyone.
I didn't understand your question, Charlie.
Are there educational resources on record keeping?
Educational resources on record keeping?
Yes, he posed that question to all speakers, to everyone per se.
You know, that's a good question, Charlie. What comes to mind oftentimes was record keeping. From time to time, we've had, that was a question that has been addressed with our fund loan staff oftentimes, especially if you're looking at wanting to purchase a farm or get an operating loan. Record keeping is oftentimes a major issue with our producers, and that generally comes up with farm loan. So as far as what particular resources we may have, I'm pretty sure oftentimes if you go online, I know we all got these technical devices, there very well may be some web pages available. Oftentimes with USDA, we do have webinars that we have, and a lot of times those webinars are recorded and to address topics like that. So that was come to my mind right off about what resources that may be available with record keeping.
Okay.
I wouldn't say NRCS necessarily have there's an educational guide to or educational resource record keeping. I just Googled real quick just to see did something pop up. I know a lot of our conservation practices have job sheets, and so on the back of those job sheets, you know, that's where you document what you're doing. But as far as actually how to keep track of your records, you may can Google it as well. I would think Fort Valley or UJ would have something that could be helpful as well. We do have, like I say, little booklets, or at least back in the days, there were little booklets that we used to give out, especially for our cattle producers that they use to jot down, you know, the different things that's going on. I'm positive that's probably online as well. And if anybody needs something, you know, I could probably look for it through the NRCS website. We do have what you call the Electronic Field Office Tech Guide, EFOTG. That's kind of where all our practices and standards are. And usually those practices have those job sheets. And like I say, you can document on the back of those job sheets as part of your certification when you're certifying practices. So that could be, you know, where you can keep your records as well. But just an actual resource to point you to directly, I can't say for offhand for certain.
Okay. Next question. if you currently have a well, she got in bracket, this is of age, can you apply for a new well?
So the question I would ask, what are you using that well for? Is it part of an irrigation system? Or is it a well that you're using to provide water to your cows? I'm not sure who posed the question.
That question was posed by Janet Johnson. Ms. Johnson?
It's basically like for like a garden and for chickens. Just a little small outfit. But the well is very, very old.
Okay. So is the well being used as part of your house?
It can be used for the house, yeah.
Okay. So what we would try to do, and more so for the garden perspective, I don't really do much with chickens. They're just not something I'm too familiar with, like free range. But as far as like your garden or your crops that you're trying to grow out there, we can assess it and see, one, what size pump it is. If we can do a test to see if it's providing the necessary gallons per minute that it possibly should be providing. And if it's just not working per se, we could possibly help you come up with a plan. If it's vegetables and you're trying to irrigate, ideally that well needs to be attached to an irrigation system.
And I also have grapes. Well,
what you say?
I also have grapes as well. Grapes.
Oh, grapes. Okay, grapes. Okay, yeah. So that could be part of your plan as far as what you're trying to irrigate, because what we do with irrigation system, it has to be designed, and based on that design will determine what size pump you may need. So some people issues with their wells could be the pump is inefficient. Well, that's a resource concern. So maybe you need a bigger pump, and this is how we help justify why you need a bigger pump. Now, if it's a full-fledged connected to the house, we really can't help with that, but maybe we can find somewhere on site that you could possibly use a new well just for the irrigation purposes. But again, we have to be able to see where you're growing and from there put in an irrigation system to be part of it. Because if you're just applying just for a well, it's not going to rank high.
Right, no ma'am.
I'm just being honest. And so, even though you need a well, it won't ever rank high enough to be selected for funding unless we just get an abundance of money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Please raise your hand or through the Zoom box or put it in the chat box.
Hey, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Charlie.
Yes, sir.
I would like to mention something. I know we're asking questions since no one, you don't have one right now. As I was listening today on the meeting, a question was asked about agriculture. I know that was when Von Treese was speaking, and I think at the time they mentioned that there wasn't a program that they had at the time. But I do want to mention that with this CFAP program, that agriculture is a practice that we're paying on. Now, I don't know if that person was talking about getting into agriculture, but if you had inventory that you sold during this first quarter, that there is a possibility that we could assist for whatever agriculture that they marketed during that particular time. So I wasn't sure about where the application, where the question was coming from as to relate to what type of operation they may have or talking about getting into it or if they had inventory. But Just goes to show the different programs that we do have out here and what's available. And I would just say, if you had inventory, you got till September the 11th to get in there. I just wanted to put that tidbit out there.
Okay. Are there any other questions before I go into closing?
Mr. Gray.
Mr. Grace, I think there's some more, a couple more. Yeah.
Mr. Price, can you help me identify those, please?
Hey, Mr. Grace.
Yes, sir.
It's Tim Robinson. I wanted to talk about, based off my experience talking to farmers, a lot of farmers, they don't understand conservation efforts. Say for instance, you got somebody who wants to apply for certain items. And when I speak to them about what type of plan that you have, what are you looking at, what type of conservation efforts, they don't understand what that means for us in relation to ranking. The breakdown, I think if we could get a clarity on the breakdown of different specific conservation efforts in relation to soil, in relation to water management, I think the farmers will get a better clarity and expectations on applying those different items dealing with the EQIP program.
Mr. Chambers or Von Teese?
I was gonna see if Robert had anything to say. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I can. So like I say, conservation. So we're the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS, that's what we stand for. So our goal is to help conserve and address conservation issues. Our natural resources, our soil, our water, animals, plant, the air, even energy and healing. So how do you go about addressing those natural resource issues by applying conservation practices? So in case where you go out to a crop field and the soil is eroding, what are some of the conservation practices that can be implemented on this land to address the soil erosion? Well, if it's real hilly or has a slope, terraces could be one practice. If there's water, if the soil is seeming to come to one concentration area, downhill, maybe a grass waterway. The common conservation practices that we do on cropland, strip till, no-till, cover crops. Those are the conservation practices that help address soil erosion, because soil is a natural resource and it's eroding, which is the issue that's going on. And that's what we're trying to address. Ideally in that conservation plan, we would like to recommend nutrient management. We want to help advise you on, making sure you're taking your soil samples, getting your soil tested so that you'll know that you're applying the right amount of fertilizer and so that you're not over applying. Pest management, that's one of the things we recommend. Field borders are some things, that's planting strips of grass on the edge of the fields, especially those turn rows and rows where you really can't plant a crop or not your best part. Those are some of the practices, field border that can attract different type of pollinators. People talk about pollinators, so we call that conservation cover. So those are some of the things. So what can you do to address your natural resources issue out there on the land? So that's what we mean by conservation. How can you reduce it? How can you improve the water quality? Great one with the cattle, livestock, if the cows are in the creek, fencing out that creek, we call it use exclusion. That way we can exclude the cows from the creek or the pond, but in doing so, we can help you possibly with a well. That well's gonna be connected to a pipeline, trough, and heavy use pad, either concrete or gravel, depending on your preference. And that way, when they're drinking the water and doing their business, it's a concentrated area where you can actually use the nutrients from the manure and reapply it on the field. So different things like that. So it just depends on what are the issues that needs to be addressed, if that helps explains it.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If not at this time, Mr. Terrence Rudolph, Dr. Ralph Noble, would you like to say something in closing remarks?
Well, look, Charlie, I appreciate the opportunity again by you and Fort Valley State University for giving NRCS a platform to be on the panel discussion today. Vontice and Robert did such a splendid job that, I mean, I don't really want to mess up what they covered, but what I will tell you is give you an example. This year alone, with the new tools that was rolled out, NRCS had over 150 million in EQIP application requests. Now think about that, 150 million in requests. But our initial allocation was only $33 million. So, you know, my job and the program job is complex enough to where we have to take that 33 million and try to squeeze it over the entire state of Georgia to make sure every landowner, regardless of their nationality, race, or what have you, would have an opportunity to participate in this most popular program that we have, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. I mean, the demand for that program is, I mean, it's just extraordinary. When I got here 5-6 years ago now, we probably started out with about 14 million in the program. And that thing has grown to now we're at about 33 million, but we did request an additional 14 million, but they only gave us 7. So, and it's been daunting. It's been tough. And this year, particularly, there's pros and cons from being in the state of the secretary, because as you know, if folks don't get in the program, they would quickly show you that they have the secretary on speed dial, and they want to call it, and it happens. I mean, we understand that. We accept that as well. The only thing that we can try to do is make sure, as you heard Robert give an overview of the program, and you heard Vontice break down all the way down to customer service as it relates to conservation planning. I mean, I can't really stress the importance of conservation planning at that grassroots level, because look, let's be honest. I mean, farming is a business, whether we want to look at it that way or not. But in mainstream agriculture, I mean, it's a way of life for a lot of folks. It's a business, and you know, as NRCS is not in the business of putting people in business. We're in the business of helping you address whatever resource concern that you have on your property through trying to be in the business, if that makes sense. If you're putting the effort to try to be in the business, and if you have hurdles or barriers that you're dealing with, then the purpose of these programs is to help you offset those barriers so that you can be able to maximize the maximum productivity of your farm at the cheapest cost. I mean, that's really what it is. So, you know, to help. And then the other thing that I would never say is that, you know, of these programs, they don't fit every land use, if that makes sense. Because a lot of times there's such, I guess, you know, there's such nuances of the purpose, the intent of those programs, that if you don't have the right formula, so to speak, on your land, then the program won't give you the scores or the points that you need to make you really competitive to compete for that small amount of money that we receive. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, but you know, Von Teese was so eloquently she broke it down to a T. I mean, you know, yes, NRCS don't have 350 employees to be out there to provide that hand holding the way we need to. And that's why we have a lot of affiliates and we have partners like you guys, Fort Valley State University. I mean, to help us educate and to help us, you know, promote these programs and services that we have to offer. And a lot of times, you know, like I heard Monteith mention earlier, is that, and sometimes I get called from folks and they ask me about a grant. And, you know, I have to kind of, you know, inform them that, I mean, you know, it's not a grant because, you know, if you get into EQIP and you decide that you don't want to pay, I mean, complete the project, then, you know, by policy, we're supposed to assess damages to those producers and they have to pay money even though they haven't received a penny. So far in Georgia, we haven't really assessed that. So it's a contract. I mean, it's legal and it's bonding and it holds up in the court of law if you get to that point. But, you know, when a producer is in a position to sign up for EQIP, that means that they have gone through all of the steps to get them to the point where they can say, I'm ready for funding now. If we can't get them to the point that they say that they're ready for funding, then it puts them in a bad situation. And so it's our job as NRCS employees and hopefully as affiliates out there, it's you guys' job to make sure that they understand that. Sometimes as human nature, with empathy, we want to try to help everybody. And that's in our human nature to do that. And we should do that. But you have to do it the right way. You don't help them by saying there's a grant program. I mean, go sign up for this program and they haven't done their homework or their legwork to get prepared for it. You talk about record keeping. I mean, record keeping is preparation. I mean, let's take, for example, I mean, if you had a 1 acre garden in your backyard, I mean, you can't go out there and just throw tomato seeds in the air and expect the garden to produce the way you want it to. You got to prepare that ground in order so that you can grow the appropriate tomato crop. And so that's how this whole process is as well. So that's the only thing I would add, Charlie. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity again. I mean, we're here to help. Anything I can do, I'm always available and willing to try to help in any way I can. You know that at my level that we try to do all we can to try to get as much funding as we can for our producers. We started out 6 years ago, we had with EQIP, we had probably, I don't know, 400 different funding accounts for EQIP program. Can you imagine back then if we had $14 million and you try to squeeze $14 million into 400 little pots? I mean, that's what we did, trying to make sure that everybody have an opportunity to get funding. So now this year we have squeezed that down to about 40 plus different pots, you know, just to try to make it practical so that farmers can have the best opportunity to compete for the program. The more pots you have, for example, you can take one farmer from mainstream and he can enter an application 15, 20 plus times. So if you can imagine one person entering one application 15 and 20 different pots. So he's knocking out everybody else from having a chance to get funded because he's taking up 20 slots. His application may be $100,000. That's $100,000 times 20. So that's what we're dealing with. And so trying to, you know, find opportunities and avenues to make it consistently fair so that everybody have an opportunity to compete for funding. So, and we do have the state technical committee that, I know Dr. Lattimore is always at that meeting, so he's a voice for Fort Valley State University. And that meeting is open up to everyone to come voice their concerns about how we can best implement these Farm Bill programs as a whole. So again, I appreciate the opportunity, Charlie, and yeah, I look forward to working with you guys in the future. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rudolph. Dr. Ralph Nova, would you like to say anything in closing?
I guess simply to thank NRCS and the Cooperative Extension Program for working together on this important area in our community. And I've been to a number of these type of sessions from my days at Tuskegee all the way up to North Carolina. And I don't believe I get the same kind of exchange I see here. That some of the questions that I believe we heard today is not always personal, but we come from communities where those issues come up. Why NRCS may not be doing this for me and such and so. But I think the presenters there did an excellent job today. I think we could have used a lot more attendance, because sometimes it's the ones who don't show up are the ones that are door trying to see why something didn't go right. But I just want to extend my thank you for everybody working together on it, presenting a very important topic to our community. And in some cases, people that look like us address us. And so we see issues in our community that may not be on the front page, but then we have avenues to get to people that will listen and hopefully get things taking place. So I enjoyed the session today, enjoyed the speakers, and hope we do more of this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noble. Evaluation. Please, you will be provided the link. I think it's in the chat box, or you will be receiving it by email. Please take out the time to complete the evaluation. It will help Fort Valley Station as we look into future programming. Again, please take out the time to complete your evaluation. Pesticide. On the flyer, highlighted in the right of the flyer, the green box, the pesticide link, you will see that. If you're interested in receiving recertification, which is 1 hour as it relates to commercial and private, I need you to complete that registration form. Can you guys see the course number and course name in the chat box, or I need to go over that?
I don't see anything.
Okay. I need you to write this down if you're interested in earning 1 hour of pesticide recertification credit. The course title per se is FVSU Extension Ag Update Zoom training. That's the course title that you need to put on the registration form. The course number, which is very important, is the letter R 20-00866. Now, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to click on that link. You're gonna have to download that form. You're gonna have to scan it in a PDF file. Send it to Charlie Grace. I'm gonna give you my email address. It's my last name, Grace. C as in Charlie at fvsu.edu. I need all the deadlines to submit those forms, a registration form. It's Friday, August the 28th by 5 p.m. Do I need to go back over the course title or the course number? Okay. With that said, I want to thank, on behalf of Fort Valley State University, College of Ag, Family Science and Technology Department, and the Corporate Extension.
Charlie,
yes.
You have someone saying, could you go back over that one more time in the chat? They asked if you could go back over that.
Okay. The course title, can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes.
FVSU, it's the acronym for Fort Valley State University, FVSU. Extension, Ag, Update, Zoom training. That's the course title. The course number is the letter R, number 20-00866. Again, on the flyer, right, the bottom right of the flyer, highlighted in green, is the link for you to click on to download the registration form. Upon completion, scan that document into Word or PDF and email it to Grace, GRACEC, at fvsu.edu by 5 p.m. this Friday, August the 28th. I will collect the registration forms, scan them in, or scan the forms in, and forward them to Georgia Department of Agriculture so they can incorporate it into the system so you can earn the 1 hour credit for today's meeting. Again, it's very important that we need you to complete the evaluation form. Are there any other remarks? Okay. Again, thank you very much. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.